each each organization, each DoD organization is different. They're going to do things differently, and each lab is different. So when I talk about a lab, it sounds like I'm talking about one specific location, and sometimes I'm not. It's not necessarily a physical location, one physical location. But I'm working across all of the, they're called ORDAs. I'm sorry, but that's an acronym and I don't remember what it stands for, but they're the people that are in the technology transfer offices that interface with the researchers. And that's our first stop when we go to licensed technology. So we're putting together some training so that we save businesses time and we save the lab's time. And what I'm finding is that if businesses had just a little bit of information up front, it can save them time and kind of help the whole process move along smoother, because it's important to note that this is, the Department of Defense. This isn't a small organization. It is the largest nonprofit in the world. It's very complex. There are a lot of rules and regulations that need to be followed, so it does take time to do all of this stuff. And that's a strategic decision a business needs to make, and we can help you with all of that. But the point of this little bit of rambling is to say that we try to prepare you as best we can to work with those labs. And the training and education that you get beforehand comes from discussions with these labs, so that when someone comes to them and say, hey, I went through the DefTech Academy, they understand that there's value in that, and that they know that you're a company that you kind of have your stuff together already right up front. You understand what's negotiable and not negotiable on a patent license agreement, for example, or a CRADA. You have your commercialization plan in the format that they ask for, using language that makes sense to them, right? If you're doing certain types of work, there are all kinds of forms that need to be filled out, a DD 254 for classified information, and all of that. So saying you went through the DefTech Academy means that you're ready to move, like right away. So we help you with technology due diligence. We provide all kinds of support services as well. And this is where I'll just pause for a minute to talk about another part of TEDCO. So with federal programs, so I'm the director of federal programs. So I work specifically and exclusively with the federal labs in the state of, I work specifically and exclusively with Maryland businesses. I work with federal labs in the state of Maryland and also federal labs elsewhere. I say specifically Maryland because I'm here physically. I have relationships with them. They're here. They're really interested in the work that TEDCO is doing. But in order for me to do that and help these companies grow, the companies that I work with, I need to use some of the other services at TEDCO. So we have a group. I'll tell you about a couple groups that first I'm going to start in an interesting order. So we have a team called MII. It's the Maryland Innovation Initiative. They do something similar to what I'm doing with universities. So we've got all these research universities in the state. They're trying to pull research out and build businesses around that research. They're doing really well with that. A couple differences. One, the technology that's being developed in universities is at a higher level of readiness to be commercialized, I'll say. It was probably developed with commercial intent specifically. That's not the case for DoD at all, not at all. It's not their focus. The other thing is that these universities pay into this program to be able to get this kind of support. The federal labs do not do that. They rarely have any money. So it's difficult for them to pay for the type of support that the universities get through MII. So what MII is doing is they have research, they have people on the ground, kind of boots on the ground in the university, paying attention to what's being developed, letting people know that this opportunity for funding exists to further their research. And they're building some wonderful companies out of this. So if a professor is interested, they can apply, they get funding, they further develop their technology. They may decide to build a company around their technology, or they may decide that they have this business, this other company that they want to work with, and that company will apply for funding and further develop it. Along the way, they get the support that they need to grow their business. So that's MII. We also have the Maryland Stem Cell Research Fund, which is specifically focused on stem cell and regenerative medicine. They are working with companies that have a very long timeline in the development, but they also provide funding for different types of work. Our investment team. So a large part of TEDCO is the investment team. When I say a large part, I mean both financially, a large part, as well as number of people in a department. That group has grown quite a bit in the past couple of years, both financially and people-wise, and they are just going like gangbusters. So because there's a good bit of money flowing into TEDCO, it really is good to attend these investment open forums on a regular basis if you're interested in funding, because you'll hear about what investments we have, what kind of companies we're investing in, and you'll have the opportunity to meet different people on the investment team and to ask them questions. So over the course of a couple months, you're meeting all these different people on the investment team. You're beginning to build relationships with them. And that can be very useful. Then you understand what it is that they're looking for and what type of funding they have at different stages. I think I don't want to guess, but I know we start really small and go up to a couple $1 million. So there's a wide range of funding available. So that's a group I like to work with. I like to send them companies. Sometimes they send me companies that need to apply for small SBIR funding. I'll talk about that in a minute. Or that might be a good connection for DefTech or one of the other federal labs in the state. The other group that I work a lot with is our entrepreneur and ecosystem engagement team. So this team has, they have the representatives all across the state. They have people in nearly every county or region, like Southern Maryland is a region. There are 3 counties, and there's 1 representative down here. And these people are mentors and advisors to the companies in the area. They work with the economic development teams in the region. They're very well known in the ecosystem. Even we have a new person that just joined recently. He's getting very well connected to the ecosystem because people want to know who the TEDCO person is, right? And they can provide a variety of support. But the fact that we have the whole state covered, I think, is significant. So in addition to that, we also have programs like we have an investor readiness program that's available from time to time. We host a number of roundtables. I think we have a fixed number right now. Like those are not changing and growing at the moment, but these roundtables are run by people who have expertise in a certain area. And we have the roundtables. We also have a group of people called network advisors. So these are not people that work for TEDCO. We have a contractual relationship with them, and they are highly curated, vetted. It's competitive to be a TEDCO network advisor. We make sure that first they have the street cred to be a TEDCO advisor, and by that I mean they are serial entrepreneurs. They have worked in federal labs, for example. They're reviewers or they're researchers. They come from Ivy League backgrounds. They come from Meta and Google and Amazon and places like that. They're researchers at MITRE, just really top-notch, very well versed in a variety of areas. We have legal expertise and CPAs, just really wonderful, and they're very, very giving. And they have to be, because in order to become a network advisor, you have to agree to provide some pro bono support to companies. And companies can apply to have access to an advisor. And we have a manager at TEDCO that will she knows the advisors. She'll work to make a good match for our company. So I use those quite a bit in the work that I do, and I use them with DefTech. So I have some funding to pay for one of the advisors to work on a longer term with companies that are licensing technology or entering into a CRADA. You might be developing a solution, and you might be very good in that area, and that's your area of expertise. But if you don't understand how to build your market, how to grow your market, you don't understand sales, or you don't understand product development, or how to develop a QA plan, we can potentially find you someone who does that, and you can work with them. So by working with them for a specific period of time, you learn how to do that. Now that's your skill as well. But you also have this ongoing support. So we do that. And of course, TEDCO also, and through this entrepreneur and ecosystem empowerment team, they have a couple of research tools that are really useful for businesses. And I watch carefully to make sure the businesses that I'm working with are using this. We give people access to Frost & Sullivan and Global Data, which are market research databases that have proved very, very useful and very, very helpful for companies. And then we just generally make sure, using these, I use these resources within TEDCO all the time to make sure that companies are getting the support that they need. And then my DefTech advisors, the two consultants that are on my team, they have DoD experience. So one of them was also former Air Force. The other I met through the Medical Research and Development Command in Frederick. So we understand what's going on with DoD. We speak the language, if you will. So one of the challenges, and you likely have heard about this before, this is the technology readiness levels. And we use this to talk about where the technology is in a range of development from 1 to 9. 1, it's on the back of a napkin. 9, it's on a shelf, either on a DoD shelf where they can go buy it, or it's at Target or whatever. So this is really important because this chart, I developed this along with the Naval Air Warfare Center Aircraft Division Technology Transfer Office to kind of put the TRL levels against the relationship agreements that you can get into with DoD, right? And what's important about this is this helps people understand, if you're looking at licensing a DoD technology, it's at a technology readiness level 3. Roughly, none of this is set in stone, not even close to set in stone, but roughly at a level 3. So there's a lot of time and money that needs to go into getting it to a 9, and which is why we kind of assess whether or not a company is ready to work with a lab. That's part of what DefTech does is, if they're not ready, we see, well, what do they need in order to get ready? So we can help them along, because it's going to take some effort to get to a commercial product. And this is a guide also. You can think, when would you enter into a cooperative research agreement? It might be when it's like around 4 or 5. So you have a prototype, maybe you've tested it, you can do, so far it can do the thing that you said it can do, but now you need it to be a little more rigorous. So this is just an idea of where your technology might be if you want to work with the Department of Defense. So this is about qualifying for DefTech. We because we're the state of Maryland, we're quasi-state, we're funded by the state, our salaries are paid for by the state, our programs are paid for by the state. We support Maryland businesses. We work with technology-based businesses. So specifically for DefTech, we're looking at things that are innovation. And if you think about it, so if you're going to work with the lab, you're going to work with the lab because you're kind of at an inflection point. There's something that a lab can do for you or with you that's going to help you move your technology further along that TRL level, help you get it out the door, help you solve a problem, that kind of thing. And while this isn't specifically about getting contracts, when you're working with a lab, just because you're working with the lab, you begin to learn the lingo, you begin to learn about what some of the problems and other challenges they have. So there are opportunities for customer discovery while you're going through this process. When we meet someone that may be a candidate for DefTech, we will have an interview with them. I just did this today with a company that is really far along with the work that they're doing, but we still wanted to make sure that DefTech was a fit for them and that they're a fit for DefTech. So when we find a company that is, we will send them an application and ask them to apply, and we explain what that process entails. It's not a quick and easy application, but it's not overly onerous. And I only ask for information that is required by my contract by DoD, or that you can reuse applying to other TEDCO programs. I'll just pause for a minute here. If you work with TEDCO, we have, of course, we've got legislation that tells us how we're going to operate and the way that we're going to behave. But we also have these values in the company that guide the way that we do things and the kinds of interactions that we have with people. We've recently come up with a registration form for TEDCO. So if you're going to work with TEDCO, you've got to register. The good thing is, in doing that, you get a registration number. That means that every time you apply to a program, you don't have to put your company name, your company website, your name, your phone number, blah, 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 all that stuff. It's already there. It pre-populates the form, as long as technology is doing what we think it's going to do. So that in the long run, it makes it a little easier. And so I'm very careful with what I ask companies to do, because you don't have a lot of time to be filling out forms over and over again. So if however, we find that their application includes a pitch. If we find in our conversation or reviewing the application that they're really not a fit for DefTech or not a fit yet for DefTech, we don't just deny them membership. We will send them the resources that they need, and we will follow up with them. We don't work with so many companies that someone gets lost in the shuffle. There is a limit. We will only work with 40 companies a year maximum, so that kind of thing doesn't happen. And so we make sure that the companies that we can't work with are connected to the appropriate resources. So then we begin services, and those services we'll start with the right kind of training, and the training will be tailored to what you're doing. There's some overall, you should know these things about technology transfer, for example, but then if you're entering into a cooperative research agreement, we're not going to make you learn about test service agreements right now, because that doesn't make a lot of sense. So it's very tailored. We're going to offer facilitated meetings with those DoD researchers. They're very hard to get to. We're going to provide different types of expertise and support. But I talked about the network advisors. So this pretty much says the same kind of thing. We will teach you how to negotiate. So the reason I have this on here is because, while we're not attorneys and we can't advise you legally on how to negotiate, what we do is work with the lab to learn about their rules, talk to their legal team, so that we understand what parts of a license agreement are negotiable. I was talking to a person from the NIH the other day, and they said they just went back and forth with this company because the company who was paying a very expensive attorney, the company kept coming back with changes to their patent license agreement. And while they, looked at them and entertained them and were perfectly polite about it, there's just no negotiating some parts of that. So, working through us, we can help save you time, save you money, because we know, because we talk to these people all the time, what's negotiable and what's not. And you should know that up front as well. You don't want to waste time, and you certainly don't want to waste money talking to an attorney or getting advice from an attorney that says we should change this. If you know up front that it's non-negotiable, then everybody wins with education, right? That's why you guys are doing what you're doing, or have been doing what you're doing. So the other thing is that, and this is part of kind of TEDCO's values, this is what we try to do. We try to make sure that you get connected to the broader ecosystem, which is why I'm really glad that I met Mike and I met Wade, because I know more about the program now. So if I have companies I'm working with that are appropriate, I can shoot them over here for the kind of support that maybe I can't give them. So this is when I talk about connection to the ecosystem, it's not just the external greater Maryland ecosystem. It's also the TEDCO ecosystem. So I talked about investments. We have a Prelude pitch program. I don't think it's running right at the moment, but this is a great way to kind of meet TEDCO and get feedback on your pitch. We help you put a pitch together if you don't have a format for that. I think we provide you with one. But companies that are selected to participate have 30 minutes of support. So for 10 minutes, they go over their pitch, they do their pitch. For 10 minutes, there's Q&A with the people that are listening, and then 10 minutes of feedback. So who are the people that are listening? Well, there are other people from TEDCO. So this is part of the Entrepreneur and Ecosystem Empowerment Group. They will support you through developing your pitch, and they manage this program. And they bring in these network advisors that I talked about earlier. They also bring in people from the investment team. I sit in on these when I can, or someone else from my team will sit in. Sometimes my boss goes instead, but somebody from my area will be there. And so we get to hear about companies. We get to learn about new companies. And we can share with each other whether or not, hey, they should pay attention to the SBIR program, or they need to be looking at social impact investment. This is just, and it's a great way to get feedback from those experts as well, because it's 10 minutes, 30 minutes just completely focused on your company and your pitch. We do have, if you've heard of TEDCO before, it's because we have an unbelievably incredible marketing team. And so our marketing team put together a marketing toolkit that companies can use. The proposal lab, I'll talk about that in a minute, because that is an important opportunity. The network advisors, those are those, high-powered, super impressive people that we have access to. The Entrepreneur Expo is something that we did on a yearly basis. It paused for COVID. Business roundtables, I mentioned those, the market research databases. We do a startup orientation forum. We do also manage or one of the people that put together the Maryland Entrepreneur Hub. So this is a tool. If you go on our website and search for Maryland Entrepreneur Hub, you'll find us. This is a place where you can find other resources just on your own. You can go in and look for, say you're looking for a CPA. You can put in that you're looking for a CPA in a certain area, and you'll find a couple different resources pop up. I mentioned the rural and business programs. Those are the actual human beings who are in different regions. So the urban part is new. What we find is that in some of those denser populated areas, even though there's a lot of support there, people are being missed because there's just so much to be done. There's so much help that people need to have. We put advisors in Prince George's County. They work at Bowie State University out of Bowie State. They work with Bowie State. They work with the economic development team, and are just a connector in that smaller ecosystem. We also have someone up in Baltimore. Yes.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
We have like 6 more minutes, and I know there's a couple of questions, so I just wanted to kind of give you a warning, maybe to wrap up fairly soon.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So lots of resources from TEDCO, and we make sure people are connected. So when I talk about the types of resources in the labs, a lot of times it's not what you think. There is our testing grounds, literal physical testing grounds, just like this. This is up in Aberdeen. There's a robotics research, I think it's R2C2. It's a robotics research center that you can have access to test your vehicles if you have autonomous vehicles. I think they do UAS there too, small inside testing that can be done. And we can think about outside the box. So I know a lot of people don't think of medical with DoD, but MRDC, for example, the Medical Research and Development Command, is doing breast cancer research. This is usually my background because I love this picture. This is 12 million gallons of basically an indoor ocean at Carderock, so right in Bethesda. There's a lot of testing that goes on here. Companies can use this. Obviously, the Navy uses it. So that's our team, and that's where I'm going to wrap up, except that I do want to talk about, I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to talk just for a minute about the SBIR proposal lab. So TEDCO has funding from the Small Business Administration to run a proposal lab to help people learn to write responsive, compelling, competitive, and compliant proposals, SBIR proposals. So SBIR, Small Business Innovation Research. This is funding that goes to a small business. It does not go to a research university or anywhere else. The funding goes to a small business. And it is non-dilutive funding for your company. The program that I run runs from, if we get funding again, which I fully expect we will, but I can't say that for sure, we will begin recruiting in October for our next cohort. We've done this for 5 years now. We run a proposal lab that begins in January, and it just ended yesterday. And people are submitting their NSF proposals. So I do a session and I have a recorded session on how to find agencies to work with, the difference between the agencies. Some are contracting agencies, some are granting agencies. The reason I use NSF in particular instead of, for example, Navy, is NSF will take any proposal from a researcher in any field at any time of year. With the DoD, they have certain times a year. They open up, on this date, like the 1st of October, you can ask questions till, this is just an example, the 1st of November. Then you have from the 1st of November to like mid-December to write and submit your proposal. With the NSF, it's a granting agency. They offer submission all year long. They have submission windows. Right now, there are lots of other differences there, but right now I use NSF because we can get all these different companies into one group, and you learn a lot from each other. Phase ones are awarded at 15%, a 50% rate right now, 15, not 50. People that graduate from the proposal lab are graduating with or getting selected 39% of the time, which is really wonderful. So with that, I will stop. Open forums. So Neil asked about open forums. Which open forums are we talking about? Oh, no, they are not in person. The investment team's open forums. They have an open forum, and I also have one for DefTech. And I'll put a link in the chat, but they're all virtual because we do them monthly. Sometimes, so first of all, I suggest everyone sign up for TEDCO's newsletter. It is monthly. We're always talking about we're always promoting our own events, of course, because we want you to know where we're going to be and give you opportunities to connect in person. We're also talking about other things like these open forums that we have where you can ask questions. But that's a key thing to do, I think. And I've said this before I joined TEDCO. I would tell people that they needed to sign up for TEDCO's newsletter because it's one of the most useful overall, in my opinion. So, and I will put a link. This is a link directly to the June Investment Open Forum. I will also put a link for DefTech. So I do, because DefTech is a little bit different for most human beings to talk about. It's just a little, it's a different way of thinking of working with the federal government, right? Most people think I'm going to work with the federal government, they're going to give me money. That's not the case. We have an open forum every month as well, just to answer questions. Sometimes I'll have somebody from one of the labs join me for the researchers to answer questions as well. Let's see, somebody just asked, do you know open topics versus specific topic, win rates for SBIR, STTR, anywhere to find those numbers? That's interesting. So Neil, the DoD did not have open topics before this year. So we just had SBIR just went through a reauthorization process, a very painful process in September of last year, and was just reauthorized. So that's new for them to have, for the like the Army to have open topics and the Navy to have open topics. But as far as win rates specific for SBIR, there's all kinds of ways to break it down. I know the win rate for women had been, so it's 13% nationwide. For women, it was 13%, 12 and 13% for SBIR and STTR. But for women coming out of the proposal lab, it was actually closer to 60% for women-owned businesses. But those numbers, you can find a lot of data on sbir.gov. I'll share my screen. DefTech, okay.
Are those numbers NSF numbers, by the way?
No, those are global, just any agency,
Okay.
SBIR overall. So the SBIR program is kind of managed by the SBA, but the SBA doesn't have any funding. Let me make this bigger. But they have they just manage the program. So they collect all the data and they send out announcements and things like that. Each agency does their own, runs their own program. So if you go here to funding, you can find some information and reports. I like looking at the award data. I also use, there's an organization that TEDCO is a member of that I use for reports, but you can find a lot about a specific agency by doing a keyword search here. So give me a keyword that has to do with your tech.
Laser.
What laser? Because that's we're going to get too much for that.
Laser power beaming.
Okay, let's see what happens. Okay, so we went down from 20,000 results to 756. So if you're searching for an agency besides the Army or the Navy to work with, you can look right here. You can see, well, 499 of those are Department of Defense, but NOAA has funded some research in this area, and let's see who else has. Oh, HHS, so NIH has funded some research in that area as well, and NASA. So these are agencies you might consider taking your proposal. Never just try to copy and paste it into a response to these agencies. You want to make sure that you're using their, and I know you know this, Neil, you want to make sure that you're using their language, that you're reflecting back that you know their agency. But the other really cool thing about this, first of all, you can sort this data by phase 1, phase 2, SBIR or STTR, and by year. Going back to 1986, and I think maybe even further than that, you can look by state, but I never really understood how that helped anybody. But you can download this into Excel. So I have literally downloaded everything before, just to be able to get the right information about the state of Maryland. And I sometimes want to compare things to other states. So Maryland is is always in the top 5 for research funding in general, and for SBIR wins as well. So lots of interesting stuff you can get here. You can sort here. I don't like to do that. I find it a little bit messy. But I'll just very quickly show everybody, because I get kind of passionate about the SBIR program and what you can do with it, and the fact that it's non-dilutive funding, which I love. You can get a lot of information on the contract. This was almost $200,000 for this one. This year it was awarded this year. This is who it was awarded to. So you can do some competitive research as well. Or you can call them up and say, I want to know more about what you're doing and partner, because here is their contact information right there. So the PI, Nelson, could be, I don't know if this is an SBIR or STTR, SBIR. So he's the PI for the company. Anna might be, you know, somebody they've just brought on board from a university. The other thing, and this will show up in your, when you download this in Excel, is their abstract, and you can just learn a ton of information from that. So that didn't quite answer your question about specifically about win rates, but I think this is probably more useful than, you know, what the different win rates are. I hope so anyways.
Right. I mean,
Hi,
I
Kim.
guess. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
We're a little past our time, and I was just, I don't know if other people have questions, but one thing I was going to suggest is if you have any other links you wanted to share, you could send it to me, and I could just share it with the group just to make sure. I've
Sure.
already opened up everything that you have in the chat, but if you have additional links, do let me know.
Oh, that's my, and I was worried about going for 45 minutes. Can you imagine? I put my email link or my email address in the chat. If you tell me you're a friend of Mike's, then I'll be happy to help you. Or Neil's. We're already working with Neil, so you can ask Neil. You can give us a grade, but be nice, please. It was nice meeting you guys, and congratulations on wrapping up. It's a big thing to do, and I'm sure there's been some attrition. It's good to see you guys sticking with it. So thanks.
Great. Thank you so much, Kim.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for
Thanks.
putting it together.
Bye.